Hey guys, it's July 16th of the Steam Summer Sale. This is the day it is. Of course, Steam servers are likely going to be getting pounded ridiculously hard. You may take that readily if you would like. We have a few deals going today, including some pretty good ones and some not so good ones. I would say today's deals are okay, but they're not amazing, if I'm honest with you. So we're going to be taking a look at them, as you'd expect, and I'll be going through what I personally think of them. I've played quite a lot of these ones. So we'll be starting along with Assassin's Creed. There are numerous packs available for Assassin's Creed, including 66% off the entire dang collection. That includes a director's cut of the first, Assassin's Creed 2 Deluxe, the Brotherhood, and Revelations Gold Edition, which makes it down to £28.94. This is probably your best bang for buck if you've not got any of them. Obviously, I'll go through the individual games as now. Assassin's Creed 1 is reported to be pretty good, but 2 and Brotherhood are better, and Revelations is, of course, pretty dang good as well. If you're not interested in the Lost Archives, the Mediterranean Travels, and the Ancestors pack, you don't have to get it. And of course, each of the packs are available individually. Each of the Assassin's Creed, other than Revelations, is 75% off. But Revelations is 66%, which makes it £10. Considering it's still a fairly new game, that's not terrible, to be honest with you. So, is it worth getting? I think most people, to be honest, are very familiar with the Assassin's Creed games by now, so I don't really think it requires me to explain too much about it. If you're a fan of the series, or you're yet to play it somehow or another, I'd probably recommend either getting the first one, which is obviously Assassin's Creed Director's Cut, or possibly skipping the first and moving to the second one, which is what a martyr actually advised me to do back in the day, even though I just ended up buying the pack actually that was on the, I believe it was the Christmas sale. So whether you want to get this or not really depends if you've been interested in it in the past. Pretty sure most of you will know what this one's about, Heather. So moving on. Next up is a fairly controversial yet fun game, Rage. Just like Serious Sam that I mentioned yesterday, where it's a hark back to old school FPS, Rage is similar. Not quite so much of an old school kind of shooter though. It's not a bad price, however. It's 67% off, which is a somewhat odd number actually. Usually it's 66 or 75. Nevertheless, it's available for 67% off. That's about 10 round British pounds, whatever that is for you in dollars. And there is the Super id, shall I say, software pack, which pretty much has everything, including Captain Commando, Doom, Hex, and blah 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 blah, for £37.99. That's only 50% off that pack, however. Well, also only, it's still a pretty damn good deal, let's face it. If you were to walk into a store and you were to say 50% off something, you'd be not unhappy. Anyway, is Rage worth buying? There are some actual patches that were released for Rage, which does improve things, such as, to be fair, the shocking video options that were available on launch. PC gamers were, let's just go with the word pissed, and unhappy with how id and Bethesda actually released Rage. It did not have sufficient graphics options, and it basically pretty much said, you know what, I know what's better than you for your machine, and I'm just going to go ahead and choose things for you. And people were upset, and there were ways around it somewhat, using base configs. Now it's improved a lot, but more to the point, is it worth buying? Is it fun? Yes to the question. I've actually gotten quite far in it, actually, in the single player. Really enjoyed it. I actually lost my save games, but that's a completely different topic. Definitely would recommend checking this one out if you've not already. It's not the best storyline in the world, but it's not bad. It's open. It does have some brown textures, but it does work for the game, and it is very pretty. The models are very nice. You can shoot them in various limbs, and that all works. And the driving sections aren't terrible, which is an achievement, actually. The game should automatically get like +10 on the achievements list simply for having driving sections that don't make me want to gouge my own eyes out every time I have to be forced to do them. So yeah, it's not a bad game at all. I'd recommend checking it out. For this price, if you've missed it or you were unsure about it, it's not a bad purchase whatsoever, and probably one of the better ones of today, if I'm totally honest. Next up is Age of Empires, the complete collection, 75% off, which brings it, at least in the UK, to £7.49. This is of course a strategy simulation. It's released a fairly long time ago in 2009, but this is the complete version. This is one of those games where, of course, most people have heard of Age of Empires. It's a strategy simulation where you, of course, as you would expect, build empires over various time periods and so on. It scores relatively well. Personally, I don't know how I've managed it, but I still have yet not to play an Age of Empires, so this actually might be one of the games I do buy in the summer sale. I do know that it reviews extremely well, and most people do love this game. I'd heartily recommend it if you are interested at all in this. For the price, it's not a bad barrier to entry at all. It looks fairly pretty, despite the fact that the requirements aren't too low, although the graphics card is a little bit higher than what you'd expect. But it's still, you know, not bad at all. You're talking like a GeForce 6800 or something like that, which is not particularly high, 2 gigs of RAM. Not on the GPU, of course. So, once again, we're not faltering recommending this. Not a bad game at all. I can't talk too much about it in personal experiences, but I can say that it reviews generally pretty well and scores just about 80 or so on Metacritic, I believe. Which, yes, it's at 81 out of Metacritic, which is not bad, and of course, regular reviews are generally pretty high as well, so definitely would recommend checking that one out if you're a fan of those type of strategy games. Moving on again. Dear Esther actually covered on this channel, and I can tell you that it's an interesting game. It's certainly a haunting, atmospheric game. Basically, you are playing a storyline that unfolds as you're continuing. Basically, the guy will randomly, talk about various things that's happening and surrounding environment, and he will basically read out almost like a storyline as you progress to certain areas. This is going to be one of those games where you're either going to really like it or you're really not going to like it, or you possibly might think it's a good game, but it's not your cup of tea. You're not really going to be the it's a good game, but it's okay kind of category. You're going to either really like it, you're really not going to like it, or you think, you can appreciate it, but it's not your thing. And I'm in the last category. I really like the music, I really like the scenery, and I really like, the narration and everything, but I just personally, from a personal perspective, did not like it. Metacritic and other reviews similarly go with this, but for 75% off, £1.74, it could well be worth checking out. It is a very good, haunting, atmospheric game that are some pretty sceneries around. You could definitely explore in it, and it's not a bad game at all. It just wasn't my cup of coffee, if you will. And yes, once again, I am British, but I am going to pretend I don't like tea because I really don't, and I will continue with coffee. So anyway, once again, Dear Esther, not a bad game whatsoever, just not my personal cup of coffee. Possibly the most old faithful out of all the old faithfuls. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you'll know that I always talk about old faithful games on the Steam summer sales and the winter sales. This is one of them. Star Wars: The Old Republic has just about been every sale that I've ever witnessed, and each time, I kid you not, it's the same damn pricing. It's 75% off, which makes it £1.74. It's also part of the Star Wars collection, which is £34.99. This is very little I think I need to introduce to this. I will quickly mention that it was also on a flash sale this time round, which I believe was exactly the same pricing. Little needs to be talked about with this one. I think most people of you know it. If you're a Star Wars fan, I imagine you probably would have played it by now. It does have slight widescreen issues. There are patches and ways around it, but the UI gets a little bit messed up depending on how you do it. But generally speaking, there are ways around it. Anyway, moving on. It's a very good game. Storyline is excellent. You can choose pretty much how you want to play the game. You can either be light side or dark side, or I don't really know which one I want to be, so I'm going to be stuck right in the middle side. To be honest with you, I personally would recommend going through the game both times, although you could conceivably go through it a couple of times, both light and dark side, because of, you know, playing as a female and a male character, because people actually interact with you differently. I personally really love this game. It's got to be one of my favourite games of all time. I very much like the second one, and I know some people dislike the second one, even though I personally do. They didn't have time to complete it, and they rushed it out, which is a shame. The twist in the game, which I won't mention any further, is pretty damn impressive as well. The graphics have aged, of course, but come on now. The games, I can't even remember how long ago it was released, like 2000 and something, 2003 I think. And that's pretty damn good. I mean, it doesn't look bad. And to be honest with you, considering Knights of the Old Republic is 2003, I think, something like that. And the Old Republic, which is of course an RPG, just released, you know, a year or so ago. I don't really think the Old Republic looks that great. But Knights of the Old Republic looks pretty damn great considering how old it is. So once again, I definitely heartily recommend checking this one out. It's an incredible gaming experience. So buy it now. Next up is Iron Front Liberation 1944. This one is 33% off, which is £13.33. I've not played this one, and I'll be completely bluntly honest. I did a bit of Googling for you guys. When I saw the Metacritic score was less than 60, I became a bit concerned when I looked at a few review websites and it scores really badly. GameSpot, I believe it is, giving it a 2.0. So, if you want it, you can go ahead and buy it. Personally, I'd avoid it. It's £14, well, £13.50 or whatever the hell it is. That's a lot of money in terms of the Steam sale. You could buy a lot for that on the Steam sale, and unless you really, for some reason, want this damn game, I'd avoid it. The reviews are very bad, so maybe someone can put a comment on there. Maybe the reviews have been unfair. Once again, I've not played it. But if someone wants to leave a comment on the video and say, hey, you know what, I've got this and the reviews are unfair, maybe there's been bugs or whatever that's been fixed now on patches, feel free to comment and let us know. So anyway, moving on. Possibly one of my favourite FPS actually in recent history is on sale right now. And that is Metro 2033, which is 75% off, or £3.75 in more realistic terms. Or you could buy the whole dang THQ collection if you want, 84% off, that's £35 basically, which includes Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl, Titan's Quest, and of course Dawn of War and various other games I'm not going to bother to read out to you. You can see them on screen anywho. So, Metro 2033 is basically a nuclear war went off, and well, let's just say that the surface is no longer quite as habitable as it once was. There are now creatures roaming around which you have to deal with, which are basically mutated. There are ghosts as well of course of other factions who are bad. And it also has some very interesting quirks in the game, such as gas masks, which are basically vital if you want to go extended periods outside. And of course, some sections of the game are completely set outside. So you'll find like a corpse or a stash, for example, and that will contain gas masks. Every so often, you'll notice that your character's vision starts to become a bit blurry, and you know it'll look like basically you've started to steam up the mask. And your character will gasp and eventually change his, mask, pretty much, the filter, shall I say. This is a very good... Oh, by the way, did I mention the filter can crack if you take certain damage, and then you're boned. So, that's separate to your life, I remember. The graphics are very impressive. It actually supports NVIDIA physics as well for extra bullet marks and so on. I'd actually really recommend checking this out. For the price, it's a steal. There is another Metro coming out, of course, Last Light. So this is a pretty good experience right now. It's a couple of years old, March 2010 apparently, so Steam is telling me. So it's not a bad experience for £3.74. This game, to be honest with you, did not get all the praise it deserved upon release. At least I don't think so. It's very fun, definitely worth checking out. Definitely something a bit different from the regular first-person shooters where you're going behind cover and so on. I really like it. Good voice acting, great narration in between the cutscenes. Can't really say much more than that. I'd definitely recommend checking this one out. Next up, as you'd expect in the Steam Summer Sale, is the Indie Bundle. This is the 5th one. Once again, £6.99, that's with 75% off, and it contains AudioSurf, Gemini Rules, Greed Corp, the Tiny Bang story, and finally Ys the Oath in Feingana. I'm pretty sure I just pronounced that one wrong. I actually did Ys or YS or however you want to pronounce it. Everyone tells me it's different pronouncing. I'm just going to go with Ys the Oath. I actually did a different version of Ys, which was called Origin. It's a pretty damn good game, actually. It's an old school kind of action platform RPG. It's almost worth the price of admission on this one pack, actually, just for that. Although, obviously, if you just wanted this one game, in this case, it's only £3.39. AudioSurf is apparently relatively good. There are some other good games in the pack, although I'm personally not that familiar with them. Looking at the Metacritic on some of them, though, they're not that great. This is probably the weakest of the indie bundles so far. I'd probably recommend checking out Ys, however, regardless, it's pretty damn good. I've also heard Gemini Rule is actually relatively fun. It does score relatively highly, so it might be worth checking out. For AudioSurf, possibly Gemini Rue and once again YS or Ys, or however you want to pronounce it. That's a very good game, so definitely worth checking out at the very least YS and probably Gemini. And finally, there is the Men of War complete pack available for £11.24. That is 75% off, which is pretty dang good. There are, of course, numerous ones of these, including Vietnam, Assault Squad, and pretty much everything else you can imagine. They, generally speaking, are looked upon fairly favourably. Metacritic and various other review sites giving them high averages, basically. Obviously, a few of them rank slightly less well than others, however. You might not want the entire pack, depending on this one. Personally, I've heard that the Vietnam is okay, but you probably want to do some real look into this one before you decide to buy it or not. There is a lot of these type of strategy, RTS and other type of games available at the moment. So, is it worth getting it? I personally haven't really touched it. I haven't really researched into it a lot, other than just a quick look at some reviews for you guys. Obviously, there's no way in heck I can have played every single one of these games. I have played quite a lot of them, obviously for the course of RGT and just, general personal life, but this is one of the ones I haven't. It's never really interested me. Reviews were, once again, all over the shop. It does score relatively highly from strategy fans, but at the same time, some people really don't like it. Graphically, as you can see on the screenshot, it doesn't look terrible or anything like that. It does seem to do tree and foliage and that kind of thing pretty well, as well as models. Whether it's worth your time picking this one up really depends. If you've had your fill of strategy, war, or general gaming, then probably not worth it. If you're looking for something remotely cheap to pick up that's going to last you for a while, it might be. Anyway, that's just about all of today's deals done, I believe. So now we're left with, of course, the various other ones. There is still Red Faction Guerrilla and Red Faction series that are available through a flash deal at 75% off at $3.74. Obviously, if you're watching this about 5 or 6 hours from now, that's not going to really be the case. There is also some other shinies. There is, no real order, Fear Free for £3.24, which is pretty damn good, actually. I'm actually highly tempted to buy that for someone. 75% off. There is Fable 3. I really like Fable 1. Fable 2 I played for quite a while. Fable 3 I just didn't bother with, to be honest. Cave Story Plus, which is extremely well regarded among many people. That's only £1.74, which is 75% off, not shabsy. And of course, finally, there is Total War, but you're probably not going to have that up any longer when you actually watch this, as it's only about 3.5 hours left. That's 75% off that. So that's £7.49. I think most of you have already played that or know what that one's about anyway. It's a very well-known series. So I think that just about covers it. Obviously, we're about not quite halfway through the sale. One more day, I think, and we're about halfway through. And then it ends on the 22nd, which will be Sunday. So by the time that happens, when it does end, I will, well, the day or two before it does end, I'll do an entire roundup featuring all the packs, mentioning about the really sneaky deals, and, you know, kind of getting you some good ideas, because by then, I figure, I was going to do it at the start, but I figure I'll wait until all the really, you know, games that most people have really wanted have probably gone on sale, and that way, if there is a pack that I think has been, you know, kind of neglected, there hasn't really been that many sales upon the games within it, that kind of thing, we can go from there. Obviously, in some cases, there's going to be some really good deals to be had as well on the last day, so who the heck knows. So anyway, oh, and also, because of the flash deals, obviously they change every 8 hours, so what people could always do as well is leave a comment in the videos and just yell, hey, you know, X is available if people want to buy it. I noticed a few of you have been doing that already. Really appreciate it, guys. Obviously, I can't be monitoring everything all the time, because obviously I live in the UK and things are going to come up within the US, and obviously things within Australia and so on, different time zones throughout the world. Anyway, hopefully you guys have found this somewhat helpful. There's been a few games, actually, more games than usual. I haven't actually played on this one. Normally I think I've played about 80% of all the games, to be honest, but this is one of those ones. There's been a few sucky games, well, at least I haven't really liked them this time round. But anyway, probably the weakest summer sale so far out of all of them. Anyway, take care of yourselves and bye for now.